Spider-Man.
We're back. Can you believe it? With Amazing Spider-Man 38, just a guy named Joe. I know it's been incredibly long time. Let's just look. Let's just look here. This is something a professional would do before the show, but with a show that comes out once a year, what do you expect to happen? This meets my expectations, but May 16th, 2024, it's been over a year. We did 3 episodes in 2024, so let's see if we could beat it and do maybe 4 this year. But we are at the issue 38 of Amazing Spider-Man, just the guy named Joe. I'm Pete, your host, and we go through issues of Amazing Spider-Man. So, we start this off with a great splash page cover thing going on here. Good times. And we open up to the action of just the guy named Joe. Now, I want to read to you the first box of text in this comic, other than like titles and stuff. Our mildly terrific tale opens in a crowded neighborhood gym where we find a not overly bright habitue named Joe Smith indulging himself in one of his ever-present daydreams. Now, first of all, I had to look up habitue, which is a regular. Tell me comics are dumb. You get words like that. Sure, they're anachronistic, old-timey. No one ever uses the word habitue anymore. This is the first I've heard it, but damn it, it's in there. But secondly, I like the comic, the first line, our mildly terrific tale. I cannot decide if that's overrating, underrating, or perfectly rating. Because it's like terrific, that's, well, you think quite a bit of yourself. Mildly terrific, though. The modifier mildly, not insignificant there. I don't know. It's like, it's funny that comics have like an opening like that. I don't know if that's really the case anymore. I don't think so. But the idea of putting an opening in your comic and then saying like, this one's pretty okay. All right. So it opens with a boxer who is named Joe, who keeps getting his ass kicked. But then this his promoter or whatever is like, he's a good kid, Come on, you're a good kid. That's what I picture him sounding like, and gets him a role in a movie where basically he's playing like a robot that destroys things. He gets on set. He's in a crazy looking robot costume. And someone's like, oh, there you are. Look, here's all you have to do. Just walk up to that equipment and smash it and get it right the first time. Which, he does pretty good. I mean, the guy filming him is like, hey, he's doing fine. But why not? Any half-wit could play an easy part like that. And he's like, oh, everything's made of like balsa wood and shit. This is easy. But then he does fuck it up. And an arc light falls into a bunch of chemicals, which then like electrocute him through the chemicals, our hero Joe, and basically knock him out. And he's like, oh, my head feels really funny. And you're like, this is very classic Marvel Comics powers getting, right? It's like when they first started, Marvel was like, ooh, an irradiated spider bite, something like that. And then they got a little more complicated. Daredevil, it's like a bunch of chemicals. I don't know. Hulk, a bomb. Fantastic Four, gamma radiation. But then with, as they matured, they were like, oh, people aren't going to believe this. So they're like, let's combine electricity and a bunch of chemicals and a guy standing in it. And, that'll be good enough. We cut to the Daily Bugle, where J. Jonah Jameson is yelling, I haven't been able to find one good secretary since she walked out of here, referring to Betty. They all want coffee breaks, pension funds, profit sharing. Bunch of fucking Zoomers. Even back in these times, it was like, ooh, I want a coffee break. I want a break. Can you believe these complaining kids? You know what I mean? Next time some boomer's giving you shit, just be like, hey, according to a Spider-Man comic I read as an adult in my 40s, you guys were asking for the same shit. Peter has a mild confrontation with Ned Leeds, but that doesn't lead to anything. They have like a little bit of a love triangle happening between Betty Brant, Peter Parker, and Ned Leeds, but it's I mean, this would be the book to write if you were like wanting to write a comic and just be like a what if or something. What if Peter Parker did end up with Betty? He says a sexist thing about, but I can't be sure how Betty would have reacted if he'd told her that he was Spider-Man. No one can predict a female's reaction. And it's like, that's definitely a line from a comic at this time that you would just be like, uh-huh. I would actually really enjoy if they like reprinted this comic, but made new art for it and stuff, and just kept the lines the same, just to see if anyone noticed this and was like, hey, that was kind of a weird line in there. He was like doing that classic thing a stand-up does where they're like, ladies, am I right? And everyone's supposed to be like, I know exactly what you mean. Except in this case, I'd be like, yeah, I don't know if I would call a woman's reaction to things unpredictable. In fact, I would call my wife's reaction to things fairly predictable. Now, always rational? Probably not. At the risk of her hearing this, I'll say probably not. But she's not going to listen to this. She doesn't listen to my regular podcast. There's no way she's like, well, you know what? I'm going to dive in with the Spider-Man podcast. Anyway, our friend Joe is still in his robot costume and starts, wrecking stuff on the movie set like he's supposed to. And everybody's like, oh my God, he's doing great. By which they mean like he's beating the crap out of everybody. Which is, arguably not actually a great way to be in a movie. Because, I can imagine the other people in the movie are like, dude, what the hell? We're just kind of screwing around and you're just like housing everybody. But then basically, he gets the red mist over his eyes and just starts going nuts. And, he has like, he's got a chip on his shoulder because everyone at the boxing gym laughed at him and was like, you'll never be a fighter. And now he's like lifting up cars and he's like, I'll show them. Very classic Marvel one and done bad guy stuff. Spidey notices what's going on, swings into the scene and says, it looks like some refugee from a Halloween party running amok, which is pretty ironic coming from him, or pretty hypocritical, I should say. I mean, this guy's dressed up in what is actually a costume, and Spider-Man is also in definitely a costume. So, I was like, I don't know, man. You're shitting all over this guy for walking around in a robot costume and wrecking stuff. You're flying around the streets like a Spider-Man. I mean, come on, dude. And so anyway, he comes in, he tries to web him up, but he destroys the webs immediately. And then Joe is like, Spider-Man, I should have guessed, which I thought was a weird line because I was like, why should he have guessed that? Up till now, his life has had nothing to do. He's probably never encountered Spider-Man, if in anything but passing. And he's not really a villain at this point. I mean, he wrecked some stuff, but it's like, I don't know. I guess that's like if Spider-Man handles people doing vandalism, which I was like, I don't know, man. I would probably just like web the spray paint can out of someone's hand and call it a day. You know what I mean? I don't need to web them to a fire hydrant and then turn the fire hydrant on and decapitate them. I just, it seems like a pretty minor issue. Anyway, they fight. And then all of a sudden, Joe is like, oh, my head is clearing. The strange mist is beginning to fade away. I don't know what came over me. And he's like, let's get out of here. And they kind of run off. Okay, then we have a part where Norman Osborn is trying to basically put a bounty on Spider-Man. And he comes up with what is either the dumbest or smartest way to do this, of all time. So first, Harry Osborn, along with his buddy Flash Thompson, drop Norman Osborn off somewhere. And Flash Thompson is thinking, what a great guy Mr. Osborn is. And I was just like, Flash, they really did characterize him to be the worst judge of character except for Spider-Man. He hates Peter Parker. He thinks Norman Osborn is a great guy and, who the Green Goblin. And then hates Peter Parker, and loves Spider-Man. Well, Spider-Man's the only one he's right about. It's like Stop Clock is right once a day, I guess, in his case. Not even twice. Somehow he fucks that up and can't even be right twice a day. So here's the plan. He goes in and offers basically a bounty. And he says, I'm prepared to pay handsomely to ensure that Spider-Man never interferes with me again. And to prevent any double crossing, he has a big thing of money. And he says, I've cut all these bills in half. You take one half now, I'll deliver the other half when the web slinger has been put out of action. I'll pay off since my half is worthless to me now anyway. This is a crazy idea. Like, I'm going to just take $1 million in cash, cut it all in half, and then I guess if you get it back, you can like tape all the bills together or something. Like, what? Does it work that way? I'm just doing some quick math here. So that would be 10,000 bills to tape together. Let me just look. Can taped together money be spent? Technically, yes. Okay. If it's mostly intact and both serial numbers are present. But I mean, don't you think this would bring up a big question? I mean, it would probably be hard you'd have to launder this money somehow, right? If you got a bunch of cash for killing Spider-Man, you'd be like, well, I can't just, I guess maybe if J. Jonah Jameson opened a bank and you're like, I got this for killing Spider-Man, and he'd be like, yeah, right. I'm fine with that. But otherwise, I don't know what you would do with it. And then if you went to the bank and you're like, you'd have to concoct some kind of insane story to explain why all this $1 million was cut in half. I was like, remember the end of Terminator when he's in that like Crushinator machine? I was stuck in one of those, but it was a blade and I had this, $1 million in a briefcase that I was bringing to this very bank. And then it cut through all the money and just barely didn't kill me. Those money saved my life. And now I'd like to deposit it, please. Anyway, there's a protest outside that Peter Parker is walking by because he's just not really paying any attention. And then he's like, I don't have anything to protest about. And everyone's like, what do you mean nothing to protest about? Don't you want to save the world? And he's like, no thanks. And then so he walks off from the protesters and they all yell at him. And then everybody else, like Flash Thompson, is like, ugh, come on. Like, you won't even join a protest? You won't even complain or whatever? He's getting a bunch of shit for just not joining some protest that, doesn't concern him. I don't know, it's just weird. What a weird thing. What the turbulent times they were living in, huh? Where everyone's like, come on, Parker, join the protest. And he's like, no thanks. And then they're like, you piece of shit. It's amazing the number of ways they could come up with, for people to dislike Peter Parker. Anyway, then, Joe, of course, goes insane again and starts smashing a bunch of stuff. And then he decides to go back to his old boxing gym and, get his revenge because everyone's making fun of him. And it's kind of funny because he goes in looking very crazed in this super weird robot costume. And, everybody in the gym is like, har, 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 we'll kick his ass. And he completely destroys them. You know what? Like, I think even if I was in a boxing gym, even if I was a tough boy who did stuff like that, as like an MMA guy or whatever, which is probably the equivalent today. If some guy who, trained fighter who wasn't good or anything, but came in looking super weird, his eyes very wide, I'm like, I don't know that he has eyelids anymore. And like his eyebrows are arched very strangely. And he's in a robot costume and says he's gonna kill all of us. I don't think I would fuck with him. if I could avoid it. You know what I mean? I think I'd just be like, you know what? All right. Spidey shows up somehow, and then we have a montage. It's got a balloon that says, okay, it's sound effects time again. So hang on, here we go. I will read these sound effects for you to my best of my ability. Fatak, Batoop, Kapalk, Foom, Sizak, Bok, Thwick, Thack, Brup, Clip. And then he basically, the guy comes to his senses, feels fine, and the movie producer comes in, or his fight promoter or whatever, and is like, hey kid, the movie producers were like, oh yeah, don't worry, those chemicals will wear off. And that's probably happening right now, which is hilarious because it's like, apparently they know that this is a possibility. They're like, oh yeah, this has happened a couple times. You know, those are just the chemicals that we keep when we're shooting a movie. We keep those around for some reason. And there is, you know, many cases of insanity. Is this like a cocaine thing? Is this a lesson about not doing cocaine on a movie set? You know, you think you're all Hollywood and shit. Anyway, Spidey beats up a bunch of guys who are there to collect the bounty, which I think is $20,000. $20,000. You know, and he's like, I wish I could claim that reward for myself. I'd be a little insulted if I was, if someone killed me for $20,000. Maybe in like $1970. Let's see. 20,000 in 1970. $166,000. Okay. You know what? If someone was killing me and they were like, oh, I'm getting paid $166,000, I'd be like, I could see it. I wish you wouldn't, but at least I'm not like, come on, man. I've always told, because Poonmaster Flex will watch like 2020 documentaries and stuff, and there are quite a few where it's like, she hired a hitman to kill her husband. And I'm always like, listen, before you hire a hitman to kill me, just tell me that you're thinking about it, and I'll just give you everything I have and just move on with my life. You know what I mean? Unless you're hiring a hitman for me because it's my birthday and you think, you know, he's ready to go. And you're doing this as a kindness to me, because I've always said, like, that's how I want to go, is just out of nowhere. You know what I mean? I don't want to spend 2 months in terror of, you know, my quickly degrading health and just in misery. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe it'd be better to just turn a corner and then everything goes black. So maybe if she was doing it that as a kindness, I don't know, I could see it. So if she paid $20,000 for that, that would be probably worth it. But if she was paying to have me killed against my will, I'd be like, I don't know. Don't you got to pay somebody at least more than like the other person could offer them immediately? You know what I mean? It's like, if the second I went to kill someone, they were like, how much are you getting paid? And I'm like, 20,000. And they're like, I'll give you 25 to not do it. I'd be like, are you going to cut the bills in half so I have to tape them together? And they're like, what the hell are you talking about? And I'd be like, never mind, done. The end is we've got Mary Jane shows up at the house, but we don't see her face. But we do see her sort of in a weird 3/4 profile. So her head is shaded by a tree. And I think we're supposed to assume it's like, oh yeah, you know, Miss Watson's niece, who's so excited to meet Peter Parker. And you're like, oh, I'm sure that's exciting. But you can see that she's quite a busty lass by, you know, her pose and everything. And you're like, well, I don't know. Just got a figure that belies. It ruins the secret a little bit. Because I'm like, well, you know, I don't see her face, but like, maybe this Miss Watson's niece is not something to sneeze at here. Unless you're allergic to babes. But then, you know, Peter Parker is basically, you know, just like sad. He's the saddest little spider in the world at the end. And that's the end. There we go. So that's issue 38. Looks like issue 39 is a big one. Got our green goblin. How green was my goblin? So get excited for that. That's going to be a big one. Coming to you in 2027.
Climbs a tree just like a vine. Look out! Here comes the Spider-Man.